Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out RV Daydream and welcome to my channel if you're a newbie. I've entitled this video something to do with RV newbies. I'm not exactly sure what it's going to say, but if you're a current subscriber, thanks for hanging on guys. But this is going to be a really long video. I'm going to try to cut it down as much as possible, but I've got so much content on this, and this is pretty much going to be rehashed for people that have already been watching our channel for some period of time. But I wanted to cover these topics for a group of new people. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. If you like what you see, click like or subscribe and follow along. Usually it's just us doing stuff as far as with our RV, looking for RVs, fixing things. But in this case, I want to talk specifically about becoming a full-time RVer.
What have you been up to?
I've been riding on a daydream. So let's jump into it. And to keep this video as short as possible, I'm going to be reading a lot. So just excuse the fact that I'm looking down at a paper because this information would get lost in translation if I just go off script. First of all, if you're new to this channel, welcome. And let me inform you the type of people that we have become, I guess. We have thought out and considered and planned a lot of things before we make any decision for that matter, but even with the RV thing. And what we found out is we heard a lot from people that just say, just go do it, just take off and go do it, you know, and try not to plan things. We heard people's, you know, viewers and people around us say, why don't you just go do it? And we've learned a lot from that. What we've learned is that there are people that don't plan and don't fret and have just as much fun, if not more, than we do, based on the fact that they just go do things. However, because it's such a big decision, we've planned this out pretty greatly. And just like we learned from those people that make those snap decisions and just kind of go without plans, we're hoping that us, being the other end of the spectrum and planning everything out considerably, you might be able to learn from some of the stuff we've already come across and found. A saying sticks with me that I heard years ago, and it had to come from a Formula One driver. And he was asked how he's learned to do the kind of things that he does while he's on the racetrack. And he said he learned from somebody else that some of the fastest drivers, the way that they negotiate a corner is they go in a little bit too hot, which is a term for basically too fast. They go into the corner a little bit too fast, and then they just kind of figure it out as they go through the turn. The other thing that I learned from, actually out of all people, my brother-in-law, was years ago whenever they were having their first child. We were about the same age, Heidi and I, and my sister and my brother-in-law. And I said, holy cow, how can you be having a child? Because as far as income's concerned, we were actually a little bit better off than they were at that time. And I said, how can you afford kids? And he brought up a very good point. He said, you know, nobody really can afford to have kids. They just do. And then they figure out how to make it work. So there is some brilliance to that not planning and just making it work. But you've got to be able to become a person that can handle and react to things quickly and not let those things fluster you. You can't be the kind of person that's driving down the street, blow a tire and pull off to the side of the road and just put your hands in your face and start crying. Oh my word, what am I going to do now? Because I didn't put a spare in the car and I don't have AAA. And my cell phone's almost dead, and I forgot my phone charger. All those things could have been avoided with a little bit of planning. Now, if you're the type of person that blows a tire and say, oh, at least it's not raining too hard, I'm going to be able to get something done here eventually. Let me go ahead and start hitchhiking. You know, there's a lot of people that are that way. Now, we have a tendency to plan a lot, but I can be that other person. When things go wrong, I'm pretty calm under pressure, and I can usually handle things pretty well. So possibly you can learn from our over planning, and maybe you can take some of the stuff that we want you to consider and consider that for yourselves. One of the main reasons that we're shooting this video is finding that there's a lot of new YouTubers and RVers, an influx of them coming onto YouTube and saying, hey, we are new to YouTube and we're new RVers, and man, this is a lot harder than I thought, and boy, this crap is just crazy, and I think we're going to end up quitting. And a lot of people do quit after a year's time, and it's because they didn't really consider anything. And you know, that's part of the journey. Maybe they want to experience that, but some of them are physically having issues. You should know that what you see on YouTube isn't necessarily true. I mean, I know that's shocking. I know that that's probably news to you, but the things that you see on YouTube, especially some of these RV channels, you see some of these RVers that they've been RVing year after year after year, and yet they are having major breakdowns and they're having major issues. Some of them, I just can't believe that they are that dumb to have those kind of issues. Now, there's other people that, you know, they have issues quite a bit, but they handle them in stride. You know, they have an issue with their RV, you know, a tire blowing, and then the next thing you know, their heater went out, or their hot water tank went out, or it's leaking water. Those things happen, but I've seen some other YouTubers that you just can't believe what they're telling you. And it's on the other end of the spectrum too, that these people are traveling in all these exotic locations, and their wine tasting, and their makeup's always done perfect, and their hair's perfect, and their clothes are never dirty, and their vehicles are always bright and shiny. That stuff is staged. Real RVers would love to be able to have their hair perfect, and their teeth all shiny, and their clothes all pressed and not wrinkled and not dirty, and their cars are clean in and out, and they would love to travel to all these places and sit in, you know, a location and have wine testing and stuff. That doesn't happen. I mean, you can experience that kind of stuff, but when you see that video after video after video that's being posted by one channel, it's being produced. It's not happening in real life. They're not showing you them breaking down. They're not showing you all the stuff that goes in behind the scenes. So that's why we're doing this video, for the people that are kind of gullible about this whole thing. Be a little bit more cynical. Take what you're hearing at face value. With that said, take what I'm saying at face value. I'm going to tell you as honestly as possible what we have thought about and what we've experienced personally. But you know, there might be something that we leave out, and it's not on purpose in my case, but it's still not going to be possibly the whole truth to everything that I talk about, just because there's some things that I might leave out by accident.
Sounds to me like you're a liar.
No, I'm not lying to you. I promise. I'm doing everything I can to give you all the information that I can honestly. We do that pretty much on our channel. Sometimes we cut some stuff out just because it's boring, but mainly for time constraints. So speaking of time constraints, back to the paper. One of the most major things you need to have figured out is income. This consideration makes a difference on so many different levels, you know, on how much you're going to travel, how long you're going to stay in any one location, what kind of RV you need to be in, what kind of accessibility is necessary. And what I'm talking about is power for the RV. Do you need a generator? Can you run on solar? Do you need Wi-Fi? Do you need a cell booster like we've got here? Do you need I mean, there's just so many things. What kind of truck you need to pull the RV. Health insurance, you got to worry about health insurance. That's a big one. Your state of residency. All this is based on your income. You know, you can't belong to a state that has crazy income tax or requires you to spend, you know, so many days of the year in the state. And I mean, all that has to do with income though. You know, there's a lot of jobs that require you to be a resident of the state in which you're working, you know, from. Again, all this is income related. There's so many different videos on YouTube about how to earn money, and you can do it. And there are quite a few opportunities. Just look it up on YouTube because it's so subjectable. There's so many different things that you could be doing, and some of them will work, some of them won't. I mean, it's just like everything else. You hear about how you can sit at home and make, you know, $5,000 a month or $5,000 a week. And here you come find out it would never work out. But you're going to have to research that on your own. Just be aware that you have to consider your income. Now, I will talk about one way to earn income because I have a lot of experience with it, and that's working, shooting videos on YouTube. Don't plan on grabbing your cell phone and saying, I'm going to be the next RV sensation on YouTube, and I'm going to go buy myself a little motorhome, and I'm going to travel and shoot videos, and I'm going to have tons of money coming in because I'm pretty, I'm handsome, I'm a good storyteller, I have good content. That may work, but for every one that it works for, there's got to be 100 or more that it don't work for. So don't think that just getting a YouTube channel, you're going to start bringing in the PewDiePie money or the Ray William Johnson Jr. money. I don't even think he's around anymore. Or the Philip DeFranco money. It's just not going to happen. Especially in the time frame that you want. You've got to have a substantial amount of money that you need to have as a nest egg or a backup before you go out there, because even when you do find something that you're earning money regularly, it's still, there's surprises that hit you, breakdown, stuff like that. That's all I'm going to talk about as far as money. And be concerned that money is a big deciding factor on what you're going to be doing on a lot of different levels. So now let's talk about personality, because what's going on with your life right now is going to make a difference on how that translates and what you're going to feel like when you're on the road. You need to make a list. Some of the questions you need to ask yourself, and actually write these things down. Why do you want to make a change? Can you change? That's a big one. Can you change? For some, changes, they're very difficult. Getting out of your comfort zone should be something that you can do and you can embrace, because you're going to run into a lot of situations that's going to put you in weird situations. So you got to be comfortable with that. One thing I noticed with a lot of new RVers, that they're still addicted to their home type lifestyles and the way that they have learned to accumulate things as a sign of their success in life. Meaning, oh, hey, I've got a 55-inch LED, the latest and greatest 4K television set. So what? All I can think about is in an RV, it's going to take up a lot of space in that RV. And you better hope that it can handle the bouncing down the road. Or I've got a real nice Keurig coffee maker that I use all the time and it makes the best coffee. That's great. All I can think about as an RVer, you need to make sure that you can store it and keep it clean, because a lot of cleaning is involved to keep those things working, operating correctly. And you don't want to use too much water, because water limitations is a thing. You got to worry about your water consumption, especially if you like to boondock. And coffee maker, Keurig, plug into the wall. Now you got to have plug-in power, electricity. I mean, those are the kind of things that homeowners don't think about. They just know that they can buy stuff to stick in their house. Really nice furniture, all kinds of clothing, 20 pairs of shoes per person, all the niceties that you can imagine. You can't do that with an RV lifestyle. If you're going to be a full-time RVer, it's all about downsizing and doing the exact opposite. Narrowing it down to just what you need plus a couple of extras. That's for sure. And I'll tell you right now, I have a little bit of a problem myself with my equipment that I use for YouTube. There is a lot of stuff that I have a tendency to want to hang on to just in case. But I'm going to find that whenever we actually get into an RV completely 100% full time, I can't have all that stuff. I know that I can't have 3 tripods. I know that I can't have 3 camcorders. I know that I can't necessarily have 2 action cams. I know that I can't have a bag dedicated to mounts and little tripods and stuff like that. I know that. But this is something that you have to know. And people that are trying to get out of their home and into an RV, they just don't picture it. They think that the only way that they can go from their home into an RV is when they're shopping for the RV. They just keep on going bigger. They get in the first RV, it might be a good size, might be the right decision, the right size for them initially, yet they see how little space they have for their favorite recliner or for all those other things that I talked about. So now they're saying, well, I don't know, this doesn't look like enough room. Let me get into something bigger. And bigger's not necessarily the way to go. And I'll tell you why that is. Although there are people out there that disagree with me, and they disagree with me with proof. And I'll talk about that in a little bit too. Make sure you have a desire to change and that you have pretty good willpower. I want you to think of going into full-time RVing from being a homeowner or an apartment dweller as a lifestyle change that's equivalent to a diet, going on a diet, or quit smoking. Both of those things, Heidi and I, my wife and I, we both experience firsthand. Me with dieting, there's times that I make the conscious decision of I do not want to be heavy anymore, and I definitely want to lose some weight, and it happens. But you have to have the willpower to continue on with that. And the same with my wife saying, I don't want to smoke anymore, and she's got to make it happen. And she's got to go through the routine, and it wears on you daily. It just daily, weekly, monthly, you just start getting worn down because there's always these temptations. Well, that's the same with RV lifestyle, full-time RV lifestyle. If you get into it and you think, oh, this is great, I love it, but then you start saying, I am so tired of having to fill my water tank and dump my black tank. I am so tired of having to make sure I got gas for the generator. I am so tired of this RV park and having to go and plug in and deal with the power surges and deal with the noisy neighbors. The nice thing about being in an RV park, you can go and take off and go to another RV park. The problem is if your job is in that area and you need to stay there for 6 months and your only other choice is an RV park that is much more expensive or 4 times as far away from your work, I mean, now you're stuck in that RV park and it's a daily grind. But for the most part, if you don't like your neighbors or the RV park, you can just load up and leave. But what I'm saying is that you've got to have the willpower to make the lifestyle work. Again, you got to have reasons why you want to do full-time lifestyle. Again, write them down. Get a notepad, write that down. Why do I want to go and become a full-time RVer? And put down all your reasons, 1 through whatever, A through whatever. Just try to find something that you can look at after you've written it down and maybe use that list as a sounding board with somebody else and say, hey, what do you think about these? And why should I worry about anything that I've got written down here? The other reason you want to make a list is because you might find that you just want to downsize and live a little bit more simply. Well, I'll tell you right now, that doesn't require an RV and you traveling around in an RV to do that. I mean, that's that whole tiny home movement. People do that all the time. Or that could be from you going from a house that has 3 baths and 5 bedrooms and a ton of floor space and 3 acres of land down to a house that has less than an acre of land and is just 2 bedrooms. I mean, some people find that kind of downsizing refreshing because they have so much less to worry about, so much less to take care of. There's other people that do kind of, the nature thing, and they go from a big home with a lot of property. Maybe they go down to a little cabin out in the middle of woods with hundreds of acres around them. Again, making that list and finding out all the critical things that make you want a full-time RV, it might be that you could do something else that would provide you with that same amount of pleasure. Maybe you're going to move from a home into an apartment. A lot of people like to do that too. Again, it might be just the downsizing part you like, and living simply, and you want to travel occasionally. Go ahead, sell the house, get an apartment, rent a storage unit, buy an RV, and put it in the storage unit, and just go traveling whenever you want. I mean, it's all up to you, but you got to start with that list. As far as your personality goes, again, you need to ask yourself, are you trying to avoid a situation that you're currently in, and you're thinking as RVing as an escape. Watch my previous video, which I'll put a link up here somewhere, that's talking about, will RVing make you happy? You know, the saying, again, getting into sayings and analogies, stuff like that. No matter where you go, there you are. What I'm trying to get at here is that you can't have all these burdens that are actually, you know, embedded in you and bring those along with you and think that they're going to go away just because you're in an RV in a different location. That doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. But there are situations where if you think that you're in an area that's not good for you, it's just a depressed area, that kind of a thing, maybe RVing is for you to get you out. Again, watch that other video on that, and you know, that'll help you with deciding on that whole factor of it. Now that you figured out that maybe you are an RV type person, let's find out exactly what kind of RVing you like to do, because there is a difference between RVing and camping. Camping, I had a whole bunch of stuff for camping. I had all kinds of camping paraphernalia. But when I'm RVing, half of that I don't even carry with me, or I can't even use. I don't even want. And that is just one small difference. Again, questions you need to ask yourself is, have you ever been camping at all? Have you been tent camping? Have you been camping in an RV? Did you like it? What were the reasons you liked it? This line of questioning is more important because I love tent camping because of the simplicity of it, and that there was no equipment really that was necessary. I found out that being exposed to the elements as much as you are whenever you're camping, I didn't like that. The first hard rain kind of pretty much said, forget this. And there were skunks one night that were walking around the tent outdoors, and I realized, oh my word, please don't scare these skunks by snoring or making any kind of a noise to where they squirt the tent. Because that's the last thing I want to do, is have a tent that I need to, you know, defume. So based on those experiences, I knew I wanted to get up off the ground and into something that provided a little bit more shelter and could store a little bit more supplies. And I'm talking about the supplies that you're moving back and forth to the truck in the tent. You know, you take your tent, it's on the end of the truck, you put it up, you assemble it, then you get all the other stuff out of the truck, you put it in the tent. Once you're done with your camping trip, you then take all the stuff out of the tent, put it back in the truck, and then you take the tent itself, fold it up, put it back in the truck. I didn't like that whole process. That was a lot of work. Plus, like I said, the elements was another issue. So that kind of made the decision that we were more RV type people. Campers and hikers are more akin to nature and being secluded, surviving on the most basic essentials. RVing still could be for those type of people, because you could use your RV as kind of a home base, and then you know, like a travel trailer or a fifth wheel, we'll just refer to them as, you know, travel trailer, or we'll just refer to them as trailers. You could leave your trailer and then you could take off in your vehicle and you know, go out in the woods and go explore and stay the night in the tent. And being that you have that RV, you know, if the weather's real bad or whatever, you don't have to go. You can just stay in your comfy confines. All right, so if you've already done all this in your head, or you're now thinking, okay, well, I think I'm still an RV type person. Now we need to figure out what kind of RV you need to get into. What do you picture yourself in? And why? Why do you think that you would feel more comfortable in that type of RV? The one thing that you have to take in consideration is that you're not going to replace your house with an RV. I want to reiterate that. You cannot replace your house 100% with an RV. There's a few reasons for that. One of them is RVs aren't built to live in full time. But that's the least of it, because everybody can patch and make things work. But there is not an RV out there that's more secure, safe, and financially viable as a house is. It's impossible. You know, the house can keep you so much more protected in a storm. And if you're ever been in an RV and you've been a big, heavy wind, hail, lightning, rainstorm, you really feel nature. You know that you're in nature. And I don't have a problem with that. Some people do. I mean, there's some people that get flustered about heavy rainstorms when they're in their home. The RV may not be necessarily something you want to do, but again, you can choose RVs based on that. It's nice to know that if you have a problem with your house that's fixed in one location, you know all kinds of repair places in the area. If not, you just go down the street and stop at the local hardware store and say, hey, where can I get a hot water tank? Who does hot water tanks? Or you can just ask your neighbor, hey, where can I have my septic pumped? Who does a good job? Or I need my lawn mowed. Can you recommend a lawn service? Or I'm having problems with electrical in my home. When you're in an RV, you don't get that nicety. You have to find an RV dealer. You can ask other RVers, but that's only for when you're in that one location. God forbid you go somewhere else and now you need something else done. You've got to go over the whole process again. There's a certain level of security that you feel whenever you do those kind of things. So again, that's one of those things that you've got to be considerate of, that an RV will not replace a house. Not to say an RV can't be a home, I'm just saying it cannot be a house. Now, I'm not going to go over all the exact pros and cons of every type of RV, but I will touch base on some of the more major ones. And again, reading from paper here. The most basic RV, the pop-up or tent camper. They're easy to tow. They are usually the least expensive. However, they have very limited room and you will still be required to load and unload the vehicle, just like we were talking about with a tent, with everything the tent camper needs to provide you for your experience while you're camping or RVing. The other thing is exposure to the elements. It's still an issue because the insulation that's available in a pop-up is negligible. It's okay. But it's because of the canvas surrounding in the living quarters. We had a hardside pop-up and it was definitely better, but still. Now, this is more of a weekender type RV for sure. It's to get you up off the ground and into a safer environment than a tent would be. But a pop-up camper would be a good choice for someone who has never camped and has never towed any kind of trailer before. A little bit more on that. Definitely. The tent camper is the easiest to tow, the easiest to learn to set up, and the easiest to camp in, and the cheapest. If you're thinking you might want to do it, and you've been in a tent already, go ahead and grab a pop-up. That's like the first step. Now, the next category is, I'm just going to call RV trailer. This is going to cover fifth wheels and travel trailers, and most of the situations are the same with those, so we'll just call it a trailer. With a trailer, you have to be a little bit more skilled and have the ability to pull and tow and understand sway control, weight limits, braking distances, overloading, stuff like that. Also, they're much taller, so you got to worry about your overall height and your width. You're not going to drive through McDonald's with a trailer for the most part, but if you try to drive through McDonald's with a pop-up, you might be able to get away with it. If you try to drive through McDonald's with a travel trailer, you're going to do some damage, and make sure you film that. I want to see that. As far as living in something full-time, it's very easy for that type of an RV. The setup, although it's a little bit more tedious, the loading and unloading of belongings and supplies that you had to do with the pop-up is no longer a major consideration. I mean, it's, I could load up this RV with all the canned goods and all the dry goods and all the refrigerated goods that I could carry, and, just leave them in here. And whenever I decide I want to go RVing, as long as the RV is plugged in to keep the refrigerator cold, that's it. I just hop in the RV and take off and go. I'm going to tell you, if you're on the fence and you're a pop-up owner right now and you're thinking about getting into a travel trailer because, it's pulled with a hitch, do your homework, figure out what you need. But we have never even come close to regretting getting into a travel trailer. Now, I know some of you may want to just jump that whole pop-up step, but you got to be pretty experienced towing a trailer and realize when you get to campgrounds what some of these campgrounds look like before you go out and buy a travel trailer or a fifth wheel. Because if you have a favorite campground like we did down at our local campground was Guilford Lake, a pop-up's easy to get in there, but there's some of those sites you could not get a travel trailer and they're not a very big one. So just be aware of that. So if you have a travel trailer or fifth wheel, you have a tow vehicle. You have a vehicle that you're pulling those things with. What's nice about that is you can disconnect at the campground, explore the campground all you want, or you can leave the campground with your RV behind, all secured, and you can actually go look at everything you want. That is a big plus for me. I like experiencing and exploring the areas around campgrounds or around campsites, whether it could be boondocking. I mean, you might go out in the middle of the desert and set yourself up and think, what a great site. Then realize that you ran out of toilet paper, and you just took your RV all the way back, maybe 5 miles. Now you're just, trotting along with your vehicle to get out. Not a big deal. The one downfall is with a travel trailer, well, pretty much with almost all the RVs, but with a travel trailer is you have to hook up the travel trailer and take it to a location to dump all your tanks and fill your fresh water. Now there's ways around that easily. They make portable tanks and they make all kinds of portable water. You can, of course, fill the freshwater tank. There's a gravity fill on almost all trailers to where you can just pour in water. You could go get, 8 6-gallon jugs of water and carry those with you in your tow vehicle. And then whenever you run out of your freshwater tank, whatever you have in your RV, you can go ahead and pour in and refill it all. And same with the black tank. You can empty your black tank into what they call a blue boy, and you can tote that however you need to a location and dump it and then come back. And same with your gray tank too. There's different types of tanks on RVs. Just to be aware that you have usually 3 tanks on any RV, no matter what it is, except the pop-ups. Pop-ups are usually limited, but on a travel trailer, fifth wheel, a motorhome or coach, you have a black tank, which is toilet water. You have gray tank, which is all of the faucets and the shower. And then you have a freshwater tank, which of course is fresh water. A lot of people like myself, we don't drink the water in our freshwater tank. I would rather have a designated drinking thing, but still, anyways, getting off topic because I quit reading the paper. Now, the final RV that I want to talk about is a motorhome, sometimes called a motor coach. These can be extremely convenient for all the aspects of RV, except for 2 things that I find too much of an inconvenience for me to really own one. Not to say that I might not go into one day, because there are some things that are appealing, which I'll tell you about those too. The first thing is, if you want to explore an area, once you've set up at a campsite, or like I said, go to a boondocking situation, you have to have a separate vehicle. You have to have been pulling the entire time that you are traveling throughout the country a car on the back of your motorhome, either a tow dolly or flat towing. All that stuff requires a bunch of crap. There's some states that require your tow dolly to have a license plate. So you might have to have tags for your motorhome, your car that you're towing, and the trailer that you're towing it with. Or flat towing. There's a lot of cars that you can't flat tow. What I'm talking about is all 4 tires on the ground. And if you do, even then, there's routines that you go through. Some of them, after 300 miles, you have to get out and start them and let them run for so many minutes and go through all the gears. It's just so much hassle. And of course, you're towing something behind you too. So if you get into a situation with your big motorhome, you can't back up as easily with, a tow vehicle. You can, but it's just a little bit more difficult because it's just a little tiny trailer behind a big long unit. I can't even give you an example of that, but it's really tough sometimes to maneuver that the way you need to. Well, when I refer to the vehicle that you're towing behind your motorhome, don't get it confused with a tow vehicle. A tow vehicle is a vehicle that tows the trailers or pop-ups. A towed vehicle, which affectionately they call toads, T-O-A-D-S. A towed vehicle is a vehicle that is towed behind something. So didn't want to confuse you there. The other thing that I don't care for on motorhomes is if you have a major repair issue, let's say you have a transmission problem, That's your home that you're in. You're going to have to leave your home and all your things, your clothes, your food, your everything, everything in your medicine cabinet, all your makeup, all your toothpaste, your razors, all that stuff. You're going to have to leave that motorhome possibly at a garage. And now you got to get in your towed vehicle and you need to go to a hotel. And you've got to pay for a hotel. And then you're going to have to pay for your repairs too. So you're out your living area. I'd hate that. Now, some repair shops let you stay in your motorhome while, in between the repair time. But if it's inside the repair shop, don't count on it. Do not count on it. And, working on those motorhomes, some of them are pretty intimidating. I mean, I'm a mechanic and I can tell you that there's some tight quarters there and some tough stuff to do to get to certain things to repair them. To elaborate a little bit more on this, if my truck has a transmission problem, I just make sure my RV gets to a campground or to a camp area or someplace I can stay. I set the RV up, then I get the truck taken care of. And the truck can be in the shop for a week, and I'm still living in my RV, and I'm not paying any extra nightly, for my truck to be worked on. It's nice. It's nice to have that separation. The other thing I find about a motorhome is that motorhomes, whether they be shorter ones, maybe a 22-footer, or they're 40-foot, compared to a travel trailer or a fifth wheel of that same size, you can't move that thing in the middle. You can't move the RV around a corner the exact same way you can with a travel trailer. You can drive your motor coach around the corner, and of course there's easy ways to do that. But what I'm saying is, as far as maneuverability, usually you can get that travel trailer in and out of areas a little bit easier, unless you have an overly large one. But still, I find it easier myself to do that. Now, there's some people that find driving what they're trying to maneuver easier. I understand that. I mean, I drove big trucks. I'm not talking tractor trailers, but I drove big trucks when I was in the military. 5-ton wreckers, box trucks, stuff like that. And I kind of feel pretty comfortable doing that too. But the height of motorhomes are usually pretty tall, even though some fifth wheels are pretty tall. And even some travel trailers are pretty tall. Motorhomes always seem to be pretty big, except for some of the Class C's, which there's different classes. You want to look into that. Just look up on YouTube Class A versus Class C versus Class B. It has to do, that letter doesn't mean size difference. It's just what they categorize each one as. So yeah, you want to look into motorhomes for size constraints. That's something that I don't really care for too much, but I still consider motorhomes, and I still like motorhomes for these reasons. Nothing's better than pulling into a camp area, even if it's just for the night, and you get yourself kind of level. Getting your RV level is a big thing. Trying to get your RV level, because even though these RV refrigerators that are cooled on propane, there's ammonia inside of them, and they need to be level for the most part to operate. It's not such a big deal in a motorhome, in a lot of motorhomes, because they have little indicators inside that show when you're level. And even if you're not level, once you get stopped and you engage your parking brake, you just push a button, and these outriggers, these leveling jacks, they come out and they actually lift the coach and make the coach to where it's level. And man, that's awesome. I mean, I would love to just be able to pull into a Walmart for the night and push a button and have my coach level out. Instead, we might be on a little bit of a hill or something with our travel trailer, and I rarely go ahead and put the stabilizers down to try to straighten that out. But you can. I mean, you can. It's easier with a coach. The other thing that I like with motorhomes is whenever it's pouring down rain, you've been driving, it's late at night, you just want to stop for the night and go to bed. Guess what? You don't have to get wet. You don't have to do anything. You just pull over, find a spot, push that button, like I said, to level out, and then you climb into bed. You're done. You go to the bathroom, you take your shower, you go to bed. You never got out of the motorhome. You don't even have to look at people if you don't want to. You don't have to be, gawked at by anyone. You don't have to deal with anything. You just go to bed. That's really nice. The other thing is because it's all self-contained in one big unit. As you're driving down the road, and even though it's not safe to do, you're hungry, somebody else in the coach can go back, make a sandwich, and bring it up to you. If you need to go to the bathroom, you can pull over to the side of the road and walk to the back of the RV, go to the bathroom, and then get back in the driver's seat and go. Now, you can do that with a travel trailer too, but you got to get out of your truck. You got to go back to the RV. You usually got to put down your steps, and then you got to climb up in the RV and do whatever you need to do. And then again, reverse that whole process to get back on the road again. The other nice thing is if you're tired and you've been driving a long time, pull over to the side of the road, switch drivers, you go back to the bed and fall asleep. Take a nap, or just fall asleep on the couch if it's suited, if it's got a couch there. It's nice. You can do all that so much easier with a motorhome. Those are really huge pluses. I love that fact. One thing Heidi tells me though is that I glamorize motorhomes a little bit, and it wouldn't be as good for me as I think, for one reason. She said the noise, and I agree with her. I know that those motorhomes, I have no idea how noisy it is inside of this RV as we're traveling down the road over bumpy roads and stuff like that. I have no idea. It could be so noisy in here, it sounds like a 10-piece brass band or something. In a motorhome, you're going to hear that because it's all behind you. It's not like you can close off your driver's compartment from the rest of everything and be okay with it. So you've got to worry about every little ding-a-ling and ching and clank that's going on, because if not, you're going to have to hear it the entire drive. And that does drive me batty. I can't even stand when we're going down the road and I hear that little rattling going on of these little plastic rings of a drinking cup. So yeah, something that probably would make it worse for me. Something you got to consider though. Okay, so now that you know probably what kind of RV that you want, you got to decide how big you want to go. There are people that get really large RVs and they have no issues with them whatsoever. But for me personally, I like to have a smaller RV. Again, there's people that have successfully bought large RVs and they're pulling them everywhere without any problems and getting along just fine. And one of these people in particular is Mike from Wandering Wagners. He has a 37-foot travel trailer that he pulls with a dually, and he makes it look pretty damn easy. And I'll tell you the reason why is because he's an over-the-road driver. He's a truck driver. And not only that, but he's an instructor now. He teaches that. So he definitely has a good grasp on how to handle big trailers and how to get them in places. I don't necessarily want to do that myself, but there's other people that aren't as highly trained as he is that do just fine too. And again, that size thing might determine what kind of RV you want to do too, on which kind of RV you want to get into. That whole thing keeps on coming up. Are you comfortable with pulling a large RV? So if you're just a weekend type person, you want to be an RV weekend warrior, not a big deal. Get a big RV. If you can store it at your house, get the biggest one you feel comfortable with. Because most likely you're just going to be traveling to the same parks in the same areas all the time. And you know the routes that you're going to take. So there's not going to be any surprises. You know that there's a low bridge on a certain road, so you know to avoid that. Or you know that it's real twisty turny on something, getting to this one park, so you don't go there anymore because you tried it once and it was a pain in the butt. So if you're an RV weekend warrior, go ahead and get whatever you want. Get as big as you want. Now, if you're full timing, that still may hold true depending on what kind of full time you're going to do. It can be done. You can have something big because, again, you know where you're going to, you know where you're going to be, and you know the route you're going to take. But if you're going to be one of these RV full-timers that want to explore all these different areas and travel all over and don't have any plans necessarily to go to any one spot, you just have places you want to check off a list. And once you get there, you want to have as small as you're comfortable with. Again, this is comfortable. Some people need the space. Some people need to have things, more things maybe than they need. So they get into a bigger RV. With that bigger RV, it's going to hinder you in some ways. It's going to cost you a little bit more in fuel to tow the bigger RV. It's going to cause you to have a bigger tow vehicle that you can pull the RV with. Again, with that list of what kind of RVer you want to be and why you are RVing, if one of those reasons is you want to chase nice weather, you want to be able to go to a campground and you want to be able to just get to the campground, set up, and not have to worry about shoveling snow, dealing with the cold, and being able to go outside occasionally and just check out the things in the area. Maybe you have friends at the campground, that kind of a thing you love to be around. And then whenever summer comes along, you want to get out of the heat and you want to get up north, you want to get near the water, you want to fish, occasionally. You just want to be able to get out of the heat during the summer. Then maybe a bigger RV is for you, because it sounds like that you're just wanting to live in a space, in an area of the country. It's not like you're wanting to necessarily explore that area greatly or be outdoors every day. Now, on that little checklist, if you said, I want to be more in nature, I want to take hikes, I want to be in the sunshine, I want to be warm all year round, I want to explore the area, I want to do all these things, I want to be out with the birds, I want to do photo shoot, I want to fish every day, I'd love to fish every day, that kind of a thing. Or I love to kayak.
We'll walk down the steps and out.
If you're that type of person,
so we're not disturbing.
Remember, the space that you're looking for when you're looking at RVs, it's not in the floor plan, and it's not the floor space that you're looking for. You don't need a big RV for that. The reason is that space that you're looking for, it's outside the front door. It's outside the RV. It has nothing to do with the size of the RV. I would never suggest that you get a really small little tiny travel trailer or small fifth wheel, but it can be done. And it's not a bad thing. Some of these small single axle trailers are pretty decent. Traveling with Robert, he has a small or smaller RV. And it's just basic. It's got a place for him to sit, to do some work. It's got a bathroom with a shower, and it's got a bed. And it's, of course, got kitchen and everything else like that. And there's a lot of even smaller ones. Some of these little pod RVs, they are tiny. They have just a wet bath, which is a shower and bath combination all together. And they have a bed that's also the couch. And then the kitchen. That's it. And they do just fine. And the reason is it kind of reminds me of my kids when they were really, really little. We rented a really nice hotel in Myrtle Beach, and we were going to go to all these shows and everything else. We get to Myrtle Beach, and as soon as they get to the hotel room, which is, again, really nice, expensive, all they wanted to do was be at the beach. They wanted to be at the beach all day long. I'd say, hey, let's go watch this show. Let's go see the circus. No, do we have to leave? We love swimming in the pool. They've been at the pool all day. So here, that was a lesson that I learned that I'm passing on as far as RVs are concerned. I paid for all this extravagance, yet it wasn't used. And I don't want to make that mistake again, because Heidi and I do like to be outside and doing things almost all the time. The only time I'm stuck inside here is when I'm tethered to this table doing videos, editing videos. Other than that, I would be outside all the time. And when we're full-timing, you can guarantee I'm going to be fishing a lot. I love fishing. I miss fishing. It's just, there's so many time constraints. I can't enjoy it as much whenever I know that I got stuff I need to do. All right, so back to the list, new versus old. Now, I did a video in the past on this. I'll put a link up above here for that. Again, it's what you feel comfortable with. There's a lot of things to be considered whenever new versus old. How much it's going to cost, monthly payments. Do you have a job to support that? Do you feel like you can make repairs on old ones? Are you handy? Are you not handy? Are you going to rely on the warranty, which I don't really care for the warranties, but are you going to need new for that reason? Are you going to be taking it to the RV dealer? I mean, all those things come into play. So watch my other video, new versus old. I think I covered some of those topics. For us, we stuck with old, but that doesn't mean we're not considering new because it's exactly the opposite. We have been considering new for the last year. Just watch some of our previous videos of RV shopping. But I will have to say that you have to ask yourself some questions. Are you a DIY type person? Can you fix things? Do you have repairs done on your home where you're at now? I mean, if your toilet gets stopped, do you try the plunger, and if it don't work, you call the plumber? Do you have, when your electrical goes out and you got a circuit breaker that keeps on blowing, do you try to fix that yourself, or do you call somebody? I mean, if you've got new, it makes it a little bit easier. You know, just because you have new too doesn't mean this isn't going to not break down. It happens. It's going to break down. These aren't homes. This isn't a brand new home. Even with brand new homes, people have a certain level of expectancy, and whenever that home has a real small creak in the door or a cabinet don't line up just right, you know, they have issue with it. Well, that's the same with a lot of RVers, but there's a lot of new RVs that, you know, they're throwing them together really fast. The RV industry is growing so fast. I mean, you need to look at numbers if you're interested in it to see when I say it's growing so fast. The levels are at such a unprojected peak. It's incredible. So they're just throwing these things together as fast as possible. Quality control is not a huge concern. Not whenever they sell 50 RVs and 1 out of 50 has a problem. They're happy they got 49 out the door and they're sold. So don't expect to buy new thinking, oh, if I get new, I'll have no problems. That's not the case. Even if it's built and designed exactly like it's supposed to be, you being a newbie RVer, you're going to make mistakes and you're going to do things that are going to cause issues with the RV. You're not going to purge your natural gas. You're going to hear the refrigerator cycling, trying to click on, and it's not going to, and you're not going to know why. You're going to break stuff off. You're going to back into things. You're going to leave stuff open and get things wet. You're going to have water that overflows maybe. You just got all kinds of little things that as a newbie, you just don't know. You're not going to know those things. So don't think if I get a new one, everything will be okay. You're going to experience issues for sure. Just because you have a warranty doesn't mean it's going to be handled the way that it should be. Like I said, the industry's booming. That means all these dealers, these RV dealers that are selling all these RV manufacturers product, they're selling lots of them. And whenever there's a problem, you go back to the dealer and you bring it in and you're behind. You're on a list. You're in a line. You're going to have to wait for the repair. Not only wait for the repair, but you have to wait for them to even get the RV in to the shop to look at it, to determine what needs done. And then if it's a warranty issue, you have to wait for them to submit their paperwork that documents everything that's needed to be done on the RV. Then the RV dealer not only has to wait for the approval of the manufacturer, but he also has to possibly wait for parts for those repairs to be done. And then your RV has to be scheduled to get in there for those things to be put in the vehicle. So it's a hassle, and it actually makes things worse sometimes than you just fixing it yourself. So even if we bought a new RV, I would probably try to use the warranty if there were some issues that, you know, structure issues or maybe weld breaks, stuff like that. Maybe appliances, you know, refrigerators, furnaces, stuff like that. But everything else, I would try to take care of myself. It's just not one of those things that as a newbie, I want you to get into thinking, I'm going to buy a new RV and everything will be fine. It doesn't work that way. Now, if you want to cut down on a lot of these mental decisions and theorizing what you may want to do, making those lists, stuff like that, what you may want to do is just go rent an RV. First, ask your neighbor. Maybe you have a neighbor, a brother, or something like that has an RV and he feels comfortable lending it to you. Because quite honestly, I would have a hard time lending my RV to certain people because, you know, she's an old girl. She might get bounced around and break on them. No fault of theirs, except, you know, maybe they went through an area that they should have went a little slower with. They just didn't realize that the RV couldn't handle it. But the good thing about borrowing one is, you know, you don't have to pay anything for it. And maybe if you're borrowing it from a neighbor, you can pose the question, hey, listen, is there any chance I might be able to have you take your travel trailer out to your favorite park and drop it off for the week, and I will stay in it for a week and I'll pay for you to stay the next week. You don't have to move it. Or something to that effect. Work out a deal to where you can actually get the thing towed to the location and then ride with your neighbor and ask him, hey, what's it like? You know, what's it feel like? What do you got? What are you looking at when you're going around corners? Or maybe you can get into a big stretch of open road and say, hey, is there any chance I can hop in the driver's seat and I can drive, and you can coach me as I'm driving along. There's people I'm sure that would love to do that. Actually, if I had somebody that came to me and said, listen, I see your RV and I don't know if I want to tow an RV. Can I, hook up to your truck and drive your truck, and you sit in there and tell me everything I need to know as we're going down the road? I would probably do that. I would probably, think that would be a good thing for someone that's thinking about it. Now, of course, it's got to be a friend. It can't be some stranger that just come off the street, or, somebody from YouTube said, hey, I seen your channel and I've lived 100 miles away. I want to come tow your trailer around. I don't think that's a good idea. I mean, this have to be somebody that I feel close enough with. But the other thing you might do is go rent a truck and rent an RV. Now, before I say rent a truck, rent an RV, the only reason you'd rent the truck and rent an RV is so that you could tow, so you could feel what it's like to tow. The other thing you can do is, if you have your own truck, rent an RV so you know what kind of size you can pull and feel comfortable with. A lot of people, they get their RV and they get in their truck and they realize how much work the truck has to do to pull the RV, and it scares them. They're like, oh man, this truck's going to blow up. Trucks do pretty well. You'd be surprised how well they can handle stuff. So renting a truck and a trailer, you can actually go and tow and feel what it's like. Again, that's not going to be your truck necessarily and your trailer, but you can get an idea of weights and horsepower and torque and stuff like that, so you know what to do whenever it comes time for you to decide. The other thing that you can do with some RV places, some RV dealers, is they will allow you to rent an RV and they will deliver it to a location for you. So if you're 30 miles away from, the dealership and there's a campground there, you can say, hey, listen, is there any way you can drop it off? And I can stay in it, and then you pick it up. Work out the details. I mean, any of that can be done. And the nice thing about it is, you've now not had to theorize what size of RV you want, any of that. Just do it for the weekend first. And then after the weekend, do it for a week. Maybe do it for 2 weeks. There is a different feeling whenever you are on vacation for 2 weeks in an RV. Things get messy, things start looking cramped. You got a lot of stuff in there because you have 2 weeks worth of clothing and food and all that other stuff. Versus just the weekend, you can get away with very minimal stuff for the weekend. That's, again, another consideration that can be nipped in the bud without you thinking about it. You just go and do it. Now, if you find yourself coming home after you've been in an RV for the weekend, for the week, for 2 weeks, and as soon as you get home, you go, oh, thank God we're home. Oh my God, I can't wait to get in bed tonight, or I can't wait to take a long hot shower. Listen, I'm going to tell you, even experienced full-time RVers, I watch the videos and I see that how elated they are to have taken a long hot shower, because in an RV, your water's limited, or your hot water tank's limited for the most part. And unless you have full hookups, you're not going to have unlimited hot water, especially if you love boondocking, which a lot of people do, because you can save so much money by doing that. And that's boondocking, dry camping. You can look up those scenarios on YouTube and you'll see a ton of videos on those also. But just because you've come home and said, oh man, I'm so glad to be home, that still doesn't necessarily mean that you aren't an RVer. Either a RV weekend warrior or a regular full-time type person that could be right for you still. So last subject, I promise. If you take all this that we talked about in consideration, and a lot of things that we haven't talked about just because of time constraints, which I went way over, there shouldn't be any stress involved. there might be some slight anxiety, and I do mean slight anxiety, just because of it being a change and being different for you. You know, it's the same type of anxiety as if you went from a house to an apartment, or you went from a house in the country to an apartment in the city. You shouldn't have a lot of anxiety. You should have, you know, a little bit, but you should be able to control it. It's the same with the RV. You shouldn't be getting stressed to the point of being sick. It just isn't right. So if you take a mental outlook and a self-assessment of everything that we just talked about, and you know, make your list of all the reasons you want to do all the things that you want to do, and you sit down and use your spouse or partner or anybody for that matter, your parents, as a sounding board, and you know, take note from them, because nobody knows you except you and your friends, and tell them, hey, I'm thinking about doing this and these are the reasons why, and I'm thinking about this RV and these are the reasons why. I think that I'd be comfortable doing this, and this is why. You know, you got to have reasons for all your stuff. If you have gone over all this, you know, very thoroughly, you should be okay. You should be fine. You should be able to choose your lifestyle, whether it be RV weekend warrior or full timer, and whether it be in a pop-up for the weekend or travel trailer, fifth wheel motorhome, whether it be 12 foot or it's 40 foot, whether it's 15 foot tall or it's 9 foot tall. So that's all I've got on this subject matter. Thank God, because this has gone very long, but I wanted to cover this, and hopefully this has helped you out. Again, if you like this video, click like or subscribe. And as always, I hope to see you guys out there. Bye.